Let's go to our leadership lessons from Luke. Yep. Trying to think of what verse or what passage would really align with what we've been speaking about today. We've spoken about a lot of business leaders making hard business decisions and how they handled that. I came across this passage, which is Jesus, and I don't know why. I know exactly how it's spelt, but every time I go to say it, I say a different name. Jesus and Beelzebub. I don't know what I go to say, but I always say something different. But we are looking at Luke 11:14 to 28. And it says, Jesus was driving out a demon that was mute. When the demon left, the man who had been mute spoke, and the crowd was amazed. But some of them said, by Beelzebub, the prince of demons, he is driving out these demons, talking about Jesus. Others tested him by asking for a sign from heaven. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall. If Satan is divided against itself, how can his kingdom stand? I say this because you claim that I drove out demons in by Beelzebub. Now, if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your followers drive them out? So then they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the finger of God, then the kingdom of God will come to you. And it goes on. There's actually a whole bunch of stuff about sweeping your house clean and then them coming back and all that sort of stuff. But I think what I wanted to jump about is coming through all of these things we've been speaking about, making tough decisions as a leader and especially talking about this Israel in conflict, etc. At the end of the day, a house divided against itself can't stand. We as leaders need to be united. We need to be united with each other. We need to be united with our team. We can't just be making our decisions by ourselves, because if we're making decisions that are against the decisions that our team would be making, in the end, we're not going to be able to stand. And so how do we do that, Dr. Rod, in a way that is, as a leader, sometimes, like I started this podcast, just kind of talking about, sometimes we do have to make a hard decision that isn't what our team agree with, but as a leader, we need to make those decisions taking into consideration the input from our team and taking into consideration the impact on them. But at the end of the day, sometimes we make decisions that they don't agree with. How do we manage making those tough decisions that may be against what our team want, but still staying united?
Well, a lot of that has to do with personal relationships, Yeah. I think, perhaps if we can step back a little bit, one of the most important things about unity in leadership is to pick your leaders well to start with. See, one of the things that's going on in this particular passage is that the Pharisees, the sort of hierarchy within the Jewish culture, they accused Jesus of casting out demons because he was a demon himself. Yes. And that the power he had came from Beelzebub, or Satan, as some translations or at least footnotes say. And Jesus' response is, well, hang on a minute, if I'm a demon, number one, how can I cast out other demons? Number two, why would I want to?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the lessons here for leadership is choose your leaders carefully, right? So that your house isn't going to be divided in the first place.
That's really good.
That's in fact, that's really critical. That is really critical. If you choose your leaders well, there will often be a great deal of dissent in the process of coming to a decision. And, I chair a board, which I think is one of the best boards, if not the best board I've ever interacted with, where there's quite vigorous discussion on the way towards a decision. That's really, really important. And if I can give leaders an advice, never be frightened of dissent. I mean, I've been in leadership positions where there were 2 or 3 staff who were quite habitual dissenters. Now, some of it was just mischief making because that was their nature, right? And the stakes for them weren't too high. But look, listen to the dissenters, because change only comes and an organisation only develops and grows based on dissent. If you keep doing things the way you've always done them, you will eventually fail. So this whole lesson about the house being divided, don't think that you've got to start united.
Yeah.
That's where you need to end.
Yeah.
So the process of arriving at a major decision, I think, ought to be marked with a good deal of discussion, vigorous discussion, lots of disagreement, until you begin to get the full wisdom of the group and all of the other inputs, your background research, maybe reports that you've had written, recommendations from executive management, so on and so forth. But what you're looking for is consensus, not early in the process, but at the point where you can say, righto, can we now perhaps, vote on a motion which is going to embed a particular decision in our practice from here on in. Sometimes there will continue to be dissent. I don't think, generally speaking, we should be too concerned about that, unless it appears to be something which is being motivated by a determination to undermine the organisation. And then that raises a whole lot of other issues. But I think one of the big lessons from here is you've got to make sure you know who's on your team, and you've got to pick your team really, really carefully. And then I really do think the way to manage the whole dissent thing is through quite a long process of discussion. And then at the end of the day, say if you're a director and there's a board of 9 people, you're the only person who votes against a motion, that's fine. I think that's fine. But then don't take your dissent outside of the boardroom.
That's good.
And I think that's quite important as well.
And I think the one thing that you kind of mentioned there is about the discussions that happened. There's a lot of back and forwards. And I think that...
Absolutely.
I think that what helps with a team is being involved. They want to be involved in the conversation at least. It's not just about take information and then go away and make the decision yourself. Include them in the decision-making process. Share your thoughts. Go back and forwards on things. If they say something that you don't agree with, then you've got to find a way. I don't like the saying of let's just agree to disagree. No, let's find a middle ground. Now, there are some times if you're arguing with someone like that helps somewhere. But in this business context, as leaders, we should find a way of being able to at least, maybe not them agree with you, but they just need to understand your point of view. And then they also, this is key, they also need to know that you not have just heard them, but you understand them as well. Because that's all they care about. At the end of the day, people just want to be understood, and they want to know that you still care about them and taking into consideration their things. And so I really like what you said about there's just a discussion back and forwards. It's not, as leaders, it's not about just gathering information and then going to make a decision. Include your team in that decision-making process. Include them in going back and forth, discussing points, finding the middle ground, because you know what? Through that, you might actually change your mind.
Absolutely. I think a really good practice for leaders is to do the best they can to harvest the knowledge, experience and wisdom of those around them. And particularly, look, if you're a Christian in a leadership position, never, ever, ever look down upon the lowest person in your organisation because you don't know how much that person prays for your organisation. And until you ask, you don't know what God might have for you through that person.
Yeah.
So I've made it a practice, I would talk to the gardener, to the cleaner, because one of the lessons I've learned, of course, is that once you get higher up in an organisation, you are sometimes so busy with tasks and making decisions, you don't spend as much time as you ought on prayer. And you just have to entertain the idea that the guy who's on the ride on mower for 5 hours a day might just be praying and God might just be talking to him.
Yep.
And so I think you can miss things if, as a leader, you assume that someone hasn't got anything to contribute because they're a long way down in the hierarchical structure of your organisation.
Yep.
One of the arts of leadership, I think, is to know what kind of resources of time and energy and effort to spend on harvesting the knowledge, the experience and the wisdom of those people in your organisation and other stakeholders as well. So one of the boards I'm on, we're going through a strategic planning exercise at the moment. So we've had a meeting of all of the board. There's going to be a meeting of all of the executive management team. And then we're going to harvest ideas from staff, from students. This is a school, but certainly senior students will harvest some of their ideas. We'll harvest ideas from parents as well. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that anyone is going to get their way.
Yes.
But what it does mean is that they'll be...
The more people you speak to, the less likely it is that everyone's going to get what
there'll be a lot of diversity. But as you've already said, you just might come up with an idea. Well, you just might discover an idea that you haven't thought of, something quite novel that might actually just be the right way in which to go. So I really think that's important. We shouldn't think that as leaders we've got a monopoly on knowledge, experience and wisdom, nor do we have a monopoly on hearing from God.
Yeah.
We
that's
don't.
Really good.
We simply don't.
Well, I think that's a great way to end it. Like, we don't have a monopoly on ideas as leaders. We don't have a monopoly on hearing from God. So let's make sure that we're reaching out to our team when we're going to make those hard decisions. When we're going to make those hard decisions, let's lean on our team. Let's include them. Because they're the ones that are gonna also suffer the consequences as well. So let's include them. Hey, you just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership Podcast. If you like that, hit the like button and put a comment below. Hey, if you want to watch more videos like this, check out our channel, and while you're there, make sure you subscribe.